I really try to stay away from politics on this channel, but unfortunately for Ukraine, it seems that 2024 presidential race is really going to influence how much support Ukraine is going to get. So in this video, we're going to analyze some of the potential candidates who might become the president, and you'll see what I mean. You'll realize that the support doesn't really seem that much there, and it almost seems like they want to pull out of supporting Ukraine completely, and we'll get into all of that. Robert F. Kennedy was recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Robert F. Kennedy really has been making moves as far as popularity throughout the country. And what's really impressive about Robert F. Kennedy, he's doing it with almost no budget. He's just going on podcasts, he's making TikToks, and he's had some opinions on Ukraine. So let's analyze what he's saying about getting out of Ukraine and supporting Ukraine.
How do you get out of the Ukraine war?
The Ukraine war is easy to get out of. I mean, the Russians have been wanting to settle that war from the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the Minsk Accords was a settlement. And that was, that we basically, encouraged Zelensky. As Zelensky ran in 2019, here's a guy who's a comedian and and an actor, which I'm not saying in a disparaging way, but
Okay, real quick, the Minsk agreements, I'm going to give you the most basic breakdown. What you need to realize is that this conflict in Ukraine is not new. I know a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, but it's been around since 2014, unfortunately, mostly in the Luhansk, Donetsk region. But the thing is that this agreement was going to allow for them to essentially join Russia, to be a part of Russia, and to fall under a Russian regulation. And Zelensky, what he's saying, was going to sign it. But Zelensky also had said he never intended on signing it. So this is a very controversial thing that all political parties talk about, the entire world talks about, that whether or not Zelensky was going to sign this agreement. Zelensky says he was never going to sign this agreement because he saw it as Russia was just going to use that as free grounds and to progress into Ukraine anyway.
How did he win? How did he win with 70% of the vote? He won because he ran on a peace platform, promising to sign the Minsk Accords, which was an agreement that Russia, France, and Germany had all agreed to.
Again, I want to point this out. Zelensky had said he never intended on signing it. So again, you need to be careful when you listen to certain podcasts or interviews. Make sure you're doing your own research. Go fact check what I'm saying. I promise you, when you look up if Zelensky was going to sign this agreement, he says he never was going to sign it.
Which would have left Donbass as part of Ukraine as an autonomous region, so they can now enjoy their own language, the ethnic Russians, and protect themselves from attack by the central government, which was U.S. Installed central government, and that NATO would stay out of the Ukraine, and that's what the Russians wanted.
Now, Mr. Trump is on a totally different side of the political spectrum here, but you'll notice again a tone of not necessarily the biggest support of Ukraine or this conflict. Let me just let the clip speak for itself.
A major disaster is brewing. If I were president, the Russia-Ukraine war would never have happened, never in a million years. But even now, if I were president, I'd be able to negotiate an end to this horrible and rapidly escalating war within 24 hours. It can be done. You have to say the right things, not the wrong things. I think we helped lead Russia into that war by saying, well, if they took a small part of the country, that would be okay. Such a tragic waste of human life. When you look at all that's happening there, those cities are obliterated.
So Trump is taking the side of preventative measures. If he was in, you guys should have let me in. This would have never happened. But if I am in now, in 24 hours, this will all be done with. So again, you see sort of two different sides of we should have never gotten to this war. I can end this war. And I really do think this is going to be one of the main talking points for the 2024 political campaigns here. But again, I think the only person so far from what I'm seeing is President Biden, where his total support of Ukraine is endless. Now, please don't take this as a negative attack or any sort of attack. I'm just trying to compare and show you guys the spectrum of what the presidential candidates are going to be talking about when talking about Ukraine and how they support Ukraine or how they view the conflict of Ukraine.
The world was bracing for the fall of Kyiv. Well, I just come from a visit to Kyiv, and I can report Kyiv stands strong. Kyiv stands proud. It stands tall. And most important, it stands free. When Russia invaded, it wasn't just Ukraine being tested. The whole world faced a test for the ages. Europe was being tested. America was being tested. NATO was being tested. All democracies are being tested. And the questions we faced were as simple as they were profound.
Hey, I hope you get the point, and I hope a lot of you start to do some research and look into what you agree with or don't agree with. Again, don't just listen to one interview, because when you listen to that Joe Rogan interview, not everything he was saying was necessarily true, or no context was provided. So make sure you're always fact-checking. Make sure you take this very serious, and I really, truly believe Zelensky is going to try and push as hard as possible to get into NATO and to convince everyone to let him into NATO. If not, depending on who the president is, I think a lot of supplies and money might be running a little short depending on who the candidate is. So again, this is not an attack. This is just a critique, in my opinion, and observation on what I think may happen in 2024 if we get a political candidate who doesn't necessarily stand, not that he doesn't stand with NATO and Ukraine, but we're not going to be giving billions upon billions of dollars as much as we are giving now. And that wouldn't be good for Ukraine or Zelensky. So again, that's why I think they're trying to get into NATO. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments and opinions down below, and we'll see you later.